At this point, DC and Marvel really aren't competing with each other to dominate the American comic book landscape because they're not at the top of the heap anymore. Manga's at the top of the heap. Kids' graphic novels are here. And then comic books, DC and Marvel are way down here. And they need to work together to spark some type of interest and maybe try and compete with what is now the mainstream comic books in North America. Manga is the mainstream. Dogman is the mainstream. And Batman and Spider-Man, unfortunately, despite all the success on the big screen and the notoriety of the characters, are pretty much indie comic books at this point. A few days ago, I heard a rumor that Marvel and DC were going to be cooperating, doing something in unison, and I thought, well, that is a really great idea. I don't really see it happening. It turns out my initial inclination was half right. They are going to be doing something together, but it's basically just reprints of stuff they've already done together, and it's not really going to be anything new, at least that we know of at this point. I do hope they reconsider this decision and actually start cooperating together, because at this point, Marvel and DC aren't exactly creating tons of enthusiasm throughout comic books. Now, the Ultimate line does seem to be an exception, but we do have the Energon universe, not really Marvel or DC. And I do think there's plenty of meat on the bone when it comes to DC and Marvel kind of team ups and cooperating and telling stories together with their characters, which are absolutely awesome. As somebody with a YouTube channel concentrating on the comic book industry, we could use some buzz right about now. Now, many of you probably asked, where did these rumors come from? I think I've pinned it down. In fact, other people have been hearing these rumors, and Bleeding Cool and Bounding into Comics absolutely jumped on top of this. And this is what we know. In his private Facebook art collector group, artist Barry Kitson, who had worked on a couple of these crossovers, posted Marvel and DC are collaborating on reprinting many of the amalgam titles, including Magneto and the Magnetic Men, and the crossover events, including the Batman Punisher books. To this end, they have asked for any extras they can include in the new versions. I don't have too many originals left, but if any one of the group have any of the pages and are willing to share scans, please do let me know. In the meantime, one of the things I did uncover are these unused cover thumbnails for Batman Punisher. Hope you enjoy seeing them first, with a little smiley-faced emoji. So we do have artist Barry Kitson, who has worked on a couple of projects in the past that were Marvel DC crossovers, stating he's been approached and they are going to re-release at least some of the amalgam stuff and some of the crossover stuff. And they would like some bonus materials to flesh it out. Obviously, it'll be some type of anniversary special or whatever. I imagine they'll be taking it out of our buttholes on this one, just to pay for the opportunity to buy something they already created. Now, it was pretty cool when DC used to work together with Marvel, back in the 80s and 90s and even the early 2000s, but it's been a long time. In fact, there's an interview that I'm going to talk about after the next subject, where we hear from some previous leadership on why they wouldn't work together. And I do believe now is the time for DC and Marvel to bury the hatchet and say, screw it. We've both been screwing up so much. It's time to get together. Now, that is not likely to happen, and hopefully it does, but I don't see it happening. But we do have some more information. While neither Marvel or DC have yet to officially announce these reprints and thus which specific series are receiving new editions, the fact that the publishers reached out to Kitson for extra materials related to both their Amalgam Comics mashup line and their unrelated one-on-one hero meeting suggests their efforts will likely include many of the official crossovers between them. A couple of my personal favorites include Superman, Amazing Spider-Man, as well as Uncanny X-Men, New Teen Titans. I think those are kind of the high water mark, at least in my opinion. And I certainly do hope those are included in the reprints, because it's something I would be interested in. I know a lot of people, I guess, liked Amalgam Comics, and maybe I'm going to make some enemies here. I just don't really care about Amalgam Comics. It's just like some weird, I don't know, fanfic mashup of characters. Do I want to see Batman and Wolverine as, what is it, Dark Blade, or it's something stupid like that? Whatever. Maybe it was Hot Blade. Maybe it was Hot Claws. No, it's Dark Claw. I finally got back to the real name. Do I want to see Dark Claw, or do I really want to see Batman versus Wolverine, or a Batman Wolverine crossover, which they haven't done? I would much rather see the crossover, like with a real Wolverine and Batman writer working on it, with some badass Kubert art, or maybe some Mark Silvestri art. Certainly he's done Batman and he's done Wolverine. That would be absolutely amazing, and I do think that would get people excited. So, like, reprints of Amalgam do basically nothing for me whatsoever, and reprints in general don't get me totally excited, although I did get very excited about, like, the Batman Year One reprint. But if they do reprint the crossover books where they had, like, the team-ups, Superman, Amazing Spider-Man, and Teen Titans X-Men are definitely at the top of the list as far as things that I would at least be interested in getting. And I do think a lot of people do have fond memories of those crossovers. The reason this won't happen, like new stuff won't happen, is because DC and Marvel, quite frankly, I don't think want to work together now. Marvel is owned by Disney. I don't think Disney wants to be co-publishing with their competitors over at Warner Brothers, kind of thing. And I do think the landscape of comic books has changed a bit. But this is what Dan Didio had to say at San Diego Comic-Con in 2017 about crossing over and working with Marvel. Honestly, I looked at the Marvel DC crossovers as the last resort because at that point, the industry was in bad shape. Each company felt they couldn't support themselves. They had to work together to create a product that created enough energy and interest for the fan base at the time. I would rather put that creative energy just in our characters rather than just working on a story with Marvel characters. And the shame of it, honestly, is there were certain things created in that mix up, that mashup, that were quite exciting, but can never be revisited again without the cooperation between the two companies. So as you can see there, Dan Didio said, I don't want to work with Marvel because that's the last resort. We were both hitting rock bottom and we needed to create buzz. Well, I think we are at rock bottom once again. And if it's looked at as a last resort, I say let's go there. Like I said, there's plenty of meat on the bone. There's plenty of crossovers that never happened. Who wouldn't want to buy Batman Wolverine? Is that the biggest crossover you could do at this point? That's the original idea that they haven't actually done. I think Wolverine Batman would absolutely sell like gangbusters. Now, I don't think Green Lantern Guardians of the Galaxy would sell quite as well, but hell, if you throw Dan Abnett on the damn book and we have a crossover there, I would love to see Kilowog and Drax go at it. Little powerhouses going one-on-one. I wouldn't mind seeing Star-Lord slap the piss out of old Guy Gardner. I think that would be fun. Maybe we get to see Hal Jordan fall in love with Gamora. As a Green Lantern fan and someone that likes to dabble in the Guardians of the Galaxy, at least the older stuff, I think that would be exciting. That's stuff that I would look forward to. And I imagine most of you out there have your own super project that's Marvel and DC related, that's a crossover. A super project. Let us know in the comments section. If we get enough responses and they're badass enough, I might have to do a video on something like that. What is it that the fans actually want if Marvel and DC get back together again? Do we want to see Daredevil, the man without fear, teaming up with Hal Jordan, the man that is personified as pure will and always fighting fear? Obviously with the Yellow Lantern Corps and stuff like that. Maybe they could do something cool like this. How about you basically replay Darkest Night, at least in a very short burst, maybe 3 or 4 issues, but with Marvel characters. I would love to see the Marvel characters matched up with their Lantern Corps. I think that would be great. I want to see Punisher as a Red Lantern. I want to see Captain America as a Blue Lantern. I think that would be a lot of fun. Perhaps you could take an iconic Marvel story and throw some DC heroes in there. Maybe Infinity Gauntlet, but with DC heroes. That would be kind of fun. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but it would be pure popcorn fun, magic kind of thing where you turn your brain off and you just enjoy the moment that you're seeing a pretty awesome Marvel story with DC heroes in it. There's a lot of ways that they could do that. Now is the time to strike because I don't think it can get worse for Marvel and DC. I don't think DC's Ultimate Universe is going to spark that hot. Maybe there will be a couple of good titles in it, but some of the stuff that I'm hearing, some of the details that I've gotten make me not all that excited for it. I'm excited about all the talent working together, but the ideas themselves don't exactly sound amazeballs to get a whole lot of people excited. The Ultimate Universe can only be so big at Marvel Comics. Ultimate Spider-Man's been a hit. Ultimate Black Panther appears to have been a hit. We'll see what happens with Ultimate X-Men. But that kind of stuff can only get you so far as you have event after event kind of failing at Marvel Comics with Gang War, likely to be followed up by Blood Hunt and whatever comes in after that. A DC Marvel crossover would be a lot of fun. And I definitely, like I said, I want to hear from you guys. Now, we do know that DC and Marvel have worked together, at least collaborated a little bit in the not too distant past. In 2022, Hero Initiative partnered with DC and Marvel for a special edition reprint of 2003's JLA Avengers, a 4-issue event series written by Kurt Busiek and drawn by George Perez, featuring some of the biggest heroes from each fighting side by side. DC and Marvel came together on the new project to honor Perez's legacy. Perez was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer at the time and was a founding member of the Hero Initiative. Unfortunately, George Perez did pass away in May of 2022, and obviously that was a passing of a legend, a man that had meant so much to both DC and Marvel Comics. It was just absolutely terrible stuff, but, it doesn't have to be something of that magnitude that brings DC and Marvel together, but I do think it would be cool if maybe the bigger legacy of George Perez is he finally did get Marvel and DC to talk to each other, using the Hero Initiative They knew that his health was waning at the time, and they wanted to help generate some funds for charity and all that kind of stuff, as well as saying thank you very much to George Perez. And maybe his lasting legacy ultimately will be the guy that got Marvel and DC talking together. And hopefully, maybe in his honor, they'll be able to work together and produce new stuff. Because if things keep going the way they are going right now, we might not have an industry to save in 2 or 3 years. We have heard those words from a couple of retailers lately. Chuck Rosansky, obviously of Mile High fame, as well as Phil Boyle from Coliseum of Comics. A lot of people are worried. And I do think now might be the time for Marvel and DC to just say, you know what, screw it. Let's get together and create some of the most badass stories you didn't even know you wanted with the talent that we do have. And maybe we can get people back into comic book shops and throw a little revitalization into the comic book industry, because we could use it now more than ever. Unfortunately, it doesn't appear that's the plan, at least for now, but we are going to get some reprints. Marvel and DC are going to work together and co-publish reprints of the amalgam stuff, as well as the crossovers that they've done over the years. And I do think this is a good start, and hopefully it leads to bigger and better things in the future and more cooperation, because at this point, DC and Marvel really aren't competing with each other to dominate the American comic book landscape, because they're not at the top of the heap anymore. Manga's at the top of the heap. Kids' graphic novels are here. And then comic books, DC and Marvel are way down here. And they need to work together to spark some type of interest and maybe try and compete with what is now the mainstream comic books in North America. Manga is the mainstream. Dogman is the mainstream. And Batman and Spider-Man, unfortunately, despite all the success on the big screen and the notoriety of the characters, are pretty much indie comic books at this point. It's just it's kind of sad. But if you would like more information on comic books and comic book reviews and pop culture news, I do invite you to go check out the Patreon for Thinking Critical. We have new podcasts every single week, 8 hours of new material featuring Doc, Eric Sparrow, Jim from Weird Sides, 32 Flavors of Nick Weiser, and myself, and some other stuff dabbled in there. Lots of great content there. If you're a big-time comic book nerd like myself and you just can't get enough of this stuff,